Okay, so let's talk about mouse and keyboard on console. A lot of lies and a lot of misunderstandings revolve around this topic, and I kind of want to talk about it because honestly, it's upsetting to see some creators or players getting trashed for simply being good with a controller. But first, quick disclaimer, I used to be somebody who actually used the XIM 4 way back in the day in Destiny 1 and early Siege to play games competitively on console. Competitively in a loose sense, I would play ranked and whatnot, nothing like no invitationals or anything like that. Back when I used XIM on controller, honestly, I used to think that it made me a better gamer too. I thought that it just straight up gave me an advantage over other players, which is not true at all. After playing for a couple of years on PC now though, almost exclusively, I can for sure attest to this being a load of shit. Like, it's just not the same. So for anyone who doesn't know, the XIM is a piece of technology that translates inputs from your mouse and keyboard and other peripheral controllers. It works with not with any other non-standard controller, I think, into the standard controller inputs for the console you're using it on. In other words, it puts those inputs into a language that the console can understand. See, the thing is, nearly every game ported to console is designed to only recognize controller input because it's the accepted output for the console. Xbox have their controllers, PlayStation have their controllers, which is why plugging your mouse and keyboard right into the console often doesn't work because the games just aren't designed when they're ported over to those consoles. It has to convert and disguise it as a controller input so the game will recognize them. All from XIM gameplay, all rights and respects to them. This is their video, I'm just using it to exemplify my points. All of that is a very exhausting way of saying the XIM doesn't give you the exact mouse and keyboard experience you would have on PC. Glossing over the obvious latency issues of connecting through a fucking box and then through another fucking USB into your console, like I used to do in the day. I think there's a wireless one now, but anyways, glossing over all that, the accuracy especially, which is what I'm going to be highlighting in this video, is nothing like raw mouse input. This means that every input with a mouse through a device like the XIM is directional. So when you move your mouse in one direction, it accelerates your speed, right? It doesn't actually move the center of your screen from one point to another. On PC, that's how it works. You start at point A, you move your mouse X amount of inches across your mouse pad, and then it moves in-game according to the translation with your sensitivity and your DPI. On console, it's very different. It treats you moving your mouse the same way as moving an analog stick to aim. It doesn't move to an exact direction, it just turns, so to speak. The XIM mouse and keyboard input has a top speed. You can change it slightly to make it feel slightly closer to mouse and keyboard, but ultimately it caps out, which prevents the swooping, lightning quick flicks that PC players can perform. Anyone who's used the XIM knows it doesn't actually offer a real advantage. The input is exactly the same. You're still using the controller turning effect rather than an actual mouse input. The only thing that's different is what you're holding in your hand. Everything a XIM mouse and keyboard can do, a controller can do too, better even. So pretty much I'm just making a comparison between the WASD keys on a keyboard and the left analog stick on a controller. It's a very small difference, but I just want to point out that there are some advantages that controller has that mouse and keyboard doesn't. And while this can be, basically mitigated to a non-factor if you're a good enough player, you know your inputs well enough that you can just barely tap and go up to a corner or something, like let's say I'm trying to peek that corridor there and I just barely move, Technically speaking, controller does have a better input because the stick here, let's see if, there we go. Got my controller plugged in here. The stick allows a greater variety of movement. It's not just octi-directional. With controller has all that, and it has a slow option. So you can not only strafe at full speed, just by pushing the stick all the way, but you can strafe at a very, very slight partial speed. Using mouse and keyboard restricts you to directional WASD style movement. This means you can move in one of 8 directions with a set speed, since you can't slightly press a key like you can tilt your left analog stick. Controllers have a direct input advantage in that sense alone, And I'm sure a lot of people don't see that as a big deal, but let me tell you why. Alright, I'm going to show some footage of a godly mouse and keyboard player known as Cammy Cakes. He used to play on console back in the day, and he's made the switch since Destiny 2 came out. You know the story. Pretty much every YouTuber's fucking done it. I absolutely love this guy. He's amazing. He makes great content, really informational, and he's just insanely good, so it's just entertaining to watch. Anyways, of course, all rights here for Cammy. I muted the video, but I'm just going to be playing some of his footage to highlight how good spacing can be. Absolutely, please go check him out. He deserves all the love that could possibly be thrown at him. He's an amazing guy. Not that I know him personally, but you get the idea. I'm a fan. Anyways, let's check some of this stuff out. So right here, this is a great example. This is also just about partly about the barricade and not entirely about his positioning, but as he's popping the barricade, you can see him very deliberately pressing it at a certain time because he's aware that he could be exposed while popping it if he does it any later. So he hits the corner perfectly, throws the barricade out, and then he uses fantastic positioning to stay behind his barricade that he can shoot through while keeping pressure on the remaining enemies in the area. And let's see what that looks like. So right there, and he's even playing pretty close to cover still, that hard cover, this wall here, able to be next to that in case somebody shoots down his barricade and he's left exposed, which is really smart. And right there, after he cleans this guy up, he immediately gets back behind his barricade with very precise movement. And this is all on mouse and keyboard, so my point is, if you can do this on mouse and keyboard, the fine-tuning of a left analog stick on a controller can technically be even better than this. And it's very important for high-level play if you want to become really good at shooters specifically, because that's kind of the topic of the whole video. Positioning is super important, but, you know, very good play here, using the very edge of his barricade to maintain cover while still being able to shoot through it. Good, great, and the best players all eventually cross the concept of positioning in their gameplay regardless of the game. Whether it's like holding angles in Rainbow Six Siege or turning corners swiftly and efficiently in Call of Duty, positioning and movement must be mastered to reach higher echelons of competitive play. It's overlooked by controller users though because it's intuitive maybe. The point is, controller has strengths too, you get it. Let's talk aim now. PC mouse and keyboard has an obvious advantage in aim when compared to controllers. Not gonna dispute that, I think we all know it's true. But after seeing top level players with controllers and the guys who use mouse and keyboard on console, I can assure you it's really not that different. I've already explained why the XIM can't just recreate true mouse and keyboard accuracy. Some are so twisted by the thought of quote unquote cheaters that they'll call players better themselves mouse and keyboard users because they feel fucking insecure. Not only is it excessively toxic, since players often associate XIM or mouse and keyboard console players on the same level as aimbot cheaters or DDoSers, but it's laughably fucking stupid. Moral of the story isn't exactly mouse and keyboard isn't that much of a problem on console, because I know that won't be taken well by the public. So if there's anything to really take away from this video, it'd be just don't be such a dick to people on suspicion of what you consider cheats. We should be rewarding the godly controller players to lift them up and show others that it's possible to do that well. Like, if we demean these players, all we do is feed the repetitive cycle of players never getting over this mouse and keyboard issue. Anyways, this has been sitting in like my video ideas folder for so fucking long, and I kind of just got around to showcasing it. That's why I'm using some like possibly old footage. I hope you enjoyed watching. If you did, please subscribe. I would appreciate it a lot. And Merry Christmas. See ya.